Today, I want to share with you. Strong people habitually heal themselves. Weak people remain persistently sensitive. Have you ever experienced this? Fear of crowded places. Feeling uneasy when people look at you. Always worrying about saying or doing something wrong when interacting with others. Overthinking even the smallest issues between friends. Feeling miserable all day just because colleagues didn't invite you to a gathering. If you often have similar feelings, it indicates that you have a sensitive constitution. Dr. Elaine Aron once suggested that 15% to 20% of the world's population is highly sensitive. This means that 1 in every 5 people is a highly sensitive person. Highly sensitive individuals tend to overthink even the smallest matters. Any slight disturbance in the external world can stir up countless waves in their hearts. Such people often live very tiring lives. I read a quote that says sensitive people create pain for themselves before anything happens. A netizen shared a story once. He was on a business trip. After getting off the plane, he hired a car. Feeling a bit exhausted from the journey, he accidentally closed the car door too hard, making a loud bang. The driver froze for a moment and looked at him with a dark expression. He quickly apologized, but the driver didn't respond. Throughout the trip, he carefully observed the driver's expression. When the light turned green, the driver stepped on the gas pedal hard, and he felt it was a sign of the driver's anger. During traffic jams, he heard the driver complaining, and even turning the steering wheel seemed to convey the driver's anger. The more he thought about it, the more uneasy and guilty he felt. Just as he was about to get off, intending to apologize again, the driver suddenly started chatting with him amicably. The driver even smiled and briefly introduced some local attractions and food streets. When he got off the car, the driver enthusiastically helped him with his luggage. Only then did he realize that his own guilt had made him anxious all the way, but the driver hadn't taken it to heart at all. It was his own overthinking that trapped him in internal friction, tormenting himself. Many times, the frustrations and unhappiness in life are self-inflicted. I remember a quote from Schopenhauer: "The greatest weakness of human nature is caring about how others see you." There is nothing in this world that should bother you except your own mind. Sensitive people often live under the gaze of others, adding unnecessary burdens to themselves. Psychologists conducted an experiment. They found 10 volunteers and placed them in rooms without any mirrors. Then, they invited special effects makeup artists to create realistic scar makeup on the volunteers' faces. After the makeup was done, the psychologists used small mirrors to let each volunteer see the scars on their faces. Then, they took away the mirrors and told the volunteers that to make the scars look more real, they would apply some powder. After a while, the psychologists and makeup artists returned, but instead of applying powder, they secretly wiped off the fake scars with wet cotton pads. Once everything was set, the psychologists instructed the volunteers to pose as patients with facial scars and sit in hospital waiting rooms, observing others' reactions. After the experiment, the psychologists asked the volunteers about their feelings. They mentioned things like, "The fat woman in the waiting room gave me a disdainful look as soon as she entered. A middle-aged man on the sofa left shortly after I sat down, as if avoiding the plague. 2 unknown girls, who looked educated and well-dressed, kept privately mocking me." Without exception, all volunteers felt that people were staring at the scars on their faces. However, when the psychologists revealed the truth, everyone was shocked. It turned out that it wasn't the scars affecting their emotions, but their preconceived biases and misconceptions that led to their sensitivity and suspicion about their surroundings. In a Harvard Open course, a professor introduced the concept of the 3 M's: misinterpretation, magnification, and minimization. 1. Misinterpretation. Misunderstanding the situation, believing one failure leads to lifelong failure. 2. Magnification. Focusing on a small part, fixating on one's failures and mistakes. 3. Minimization. Oh, imagining negative outcomes without evidence, exaggerating adverse consequences. In the theory of cognitive behavioral therapy, it is said, it is not the event itself that affects you, but your interpretation and association with it. This is true in both work and life. The root of a person's suffering may not be the bad events themselves, but their excessive speculation and interpretation of others' thoughts and motives. Only by changing our erroneous perceptions can we change our sensitive constitution. Watanabe Junichi mentioned a story in his book The Benefits of Numbness. Once, a company hired two newcomers, Ken and Enley. Due to a mistake, they both made errors at work. Coincidentally, the boss was in a bad mood that day and scolded them severely in front of all colleagues. The next day, Ken acted as if nothing had happened, smiling and greeting everyone. But Enley remained gloomy all day, not saying a word. Later, Ken's positive performance earned him the boss's praise and an early promotion. Enley, however, continued to doubt himself, leading to declining performance and eventually being dismissed. Psychotherapist Elsa Sander proposed two concepts, vicious cycle and virtuous cycle. Vicious cycle. O, reacting negatively and pessimistically to problems, like Enley, falling into self-doubt and negativity, affecting subsequent work, leading to a downward spiral. Virtuous cycle. O, reacting positively to problems, like Ken, resolving issues, and receiving positive feedback. To develop an anti-sensitive constitution, one must change negative perceptions, accept oneself, and adopt a positive mindset to enter a virtuous cycle. Strong people habitually heal themselves. Weak people remain persistently sensitive. In life, it is inevitable to encounter some bad things. The boss's scolding. A friend's indifference. A passing remark from someone. But the more you think about it, the more you get caught up in negative emotions, making yourself more and more exhausted and dissatisfied with life. Instead of living in self-doubt and guilt, muster the courage to stop being sensitive and fragile. Always look on the bright side of things. When your mindset changes, the world will change with you. Writer Christopher Kenjiro once said, "Everyone gets hit by two arrows. The first arrow is shot by the external world, representing the difficulties and setbacks we face. The second arrow is shot by ourselves, representing the negative emotions arising from these difficulties and setbacks. The second arrow often has more power because we know our own weaknesses best. To truly become strong, we need to develop a strong heart and cultivate an anti-sensitive constitution." That's all for today's sharing. Thank you very much for watching. If you like the Buddha Zen channel, don't forget to subscribe and share. Here, you will never be alone.